Hello, good evening, everybody. Good evening, and welcome along to this Light and Land, a special Light and Land live stream on a Monday night. And I'm joined by two guests, not just one, but two. So I will do some introductions in a moment. And obviously, as ever, if you're watching wherever you may be, do let us know where you're watching in from, and I'll share that with the rest of the team. But let me just quickly do the introductions. I'll do the easy one first, which is Andy Farrer, who is one of our Light and Land
Yeah,
leaders. Hi, Andy. You okay?
good, thank you.
Good, good. Myself and Andy, although we're doing this online, we're about 10 miles apart, but let's not go into that because we live both down in Dorset. However, we're joined by a very special guest who is not 10 miles from us. He's a lot further away than that. Niklas Nilsson. Niklas, nice to have you on. Are you okay?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Nice
Good,
to be here.
good. It's a pleasure to have you. And maybe can you just explain to the viewers where you are based at the moment?
Based in Gothenburg, Sweden, on the west coast.
Great, okay.
Uh, mm,
And how's the Gothenburg weather at this time of year?
um, it's today we had wonderful weather for the last week, but right now it's just horrible. It's really raining a lot. So
Okay,
yeah,
sorry about
typical
that.
Gothenburg weather, I would say.
Okay, rainy. Okay, good. Good to know. Well, Nicholas is with us because he is joining Andy as the sort of the local expert in the Spitsbergen tour that Light and Land are running in June, and we're going to talk all about that tour. We're going to talk about the area. We're going to talk about shooting landscapes. We're going to talk about shooting wildlife, all sorts of things that you would see in that part of the world. Why it's a very special part of the world. We're going to obviously lean on Nicholas's expertise as someone who's been and worked up there a lot, and we'll ask him to elaborate on that in a few minutes. And also we'll lean on Andy's expertise as a fellow professional photographer who has travelled widely and also in Norway as well. But just a quick hello to some of you who are watching. Hazel, Ken, Anthony is in a cool Warwickshire. I presume you mean temperature, Anthony, or is it a sunglasses sort of an evening? Dave's in windy Reading, and Barbara in Bucks. As usual, if you are watching along, do let us know. It's really cool. It's great that we can have this international flavour, and I suppose that is one of the great things about live streaming is that people can be watching for wherever they might be in the world. So that's the plan for tonight. We're going to talk all things Spitsbergen, like I say. That'll be landscapes, wildlifes, and behind the scenes of this tour because it's a very special tour and it deserved its own live stream, and that's why I got the guys here. But firstly, before we get into sharing some images, Andy, can you just explain to us a bit of your relationship with Norway and why you were keen to do this tour?
Well, I've been going out to Norway for maybe 13 years now and taking workshop groups out there for quite a lot of those years. I've done maybe two, even three trips a winter sometimes. So I've done all of those trips on the road and I've done them all in the winter. So despite my best intentions, I've never actually made it out there to see the midnight sun or anything yet. So decided that the far north was a bit that I needed to get to see, really.
Yeah, I suppose it's different vibes, isn't it? But
Totally.
we did want to point out this is a summer-based trip, and then I will bring you in here, Nicholas, because for the benefit of the listeners, actually, before we get into the specifics of the tour, can you just explain to people what your role is and some of your experience in this area and as a photographer?
Yeah, I'm working for a company called PolarQuest, and we're doing expeditions in the Arctic and mainly in Svalbard. And I'm working as a polar specialist and a polar guide. So that's mainly what I do, and also a keen nature photographer, uh, both above and also underwater. I'm doing a lot of underwater photography as well. So, but it's starting. Everything started early beginning when I was a birder, I would say. So
Okay, okay.
in early stage, I was a birder. Then the photo come in, and then afterwards is have continued and divided in a lot of different uh, um, categories of photography. But it's all nature photography.
Okay, cool. Well, we're going to dig into your expertise about the area as we talk about the tour and look at some of the images. A couple of you, a few more people joining online, so that's great. Hertfordshire and Killarney in Ireland, that's a lovely place too. And Marion's in Cape Town. Marion, you're currently winning the furthest away. Nicholas, sorry, you've relegated to second place now, I'm afraid, on the distances. If you can beat Cape Town, anyone, let us know. You'll win the prize, which, as you know, is non-monetary. Right, let's get into it because we want to talk about this trip to Spitsbergen. And I thought it might just be useful to kind of show people, if they don't know already, where this area is and why it's such a sort of unique place. But Nicholas, maybe you can elaborate for us a minute about the place, about how it is at the time of year that we're talking about going as well.
Mhm. Yeah, as you see in the picture, Svalbard, the archipelago of Svalbard is very far north. It's actually nearly the same distance to the North Pole compared with the uh, Norwegian mainland. So it's very far north. You have when you're landing in Longyearbyen, the settlement in Svalbard, then it's 78 degrees north, and it's possible to go further to 81.
Crikey! So it's a fair way up. We've got just if I flip back, you can see for scale here
Yeah,
where Greenland is. To give you some idea of what's going on, and obviously so much further even than Iceland up there north of Sweden, etc. So
exactly.
forgive my ignorance because I have not travelled in this area. I know there is some habitation. Spitsbergen, I believe, is primarily the habited part of Svalbard. Is that correct?
Yeah, you have in the middle there on the west coast, you have a ice fjord, um, and in the ice fjord and the biggest fjord in Longyearbyen, you have one settlement, and that's Longyearbyen, and that's where you have yeah 2,500 citizens. Um it's started as a coal um, with coal mining in
Mm.
early 1900, and then it was actually it was started with an American entrepreneur called Longyear. Therefore, it was called Longyear City in the early beginning. But when the Norwegian took it over, then it was called more Norwegian sound name, and therefore Longyearbyen. And byen is the same as city in Norwegian.
Okay.
Um, and nowadays it's not so much coal mining. They just coal mining for energy. Otherwise, it's more university and tourism in Longyearbyen.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that's what we start the expedition. But we don't want to spend much time there, so we go out in the wilderness with
Exactly.
this small vessel.
Yes. So we've got a good number of images, including the vessel, because we should explain, maybe Andy, this is based around the vessel. That's correct, isn't it?
That's
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
We used a really small vessel called MS Stockholm, based in Gothenburg, and she has been for over 25 years in Svalbard, so she knows the area, and the crew knows the area very, very well, and that's one of the big boulders with Stockholm. And since she are so small, she can go into very places that very few ships can.
Hmm. So we've
So sorry,
no, it's okay.
had a
It's okay.
cold last uh, some days ago, so I'm still struggle with that. There's a lot of cough.
That's okay. Don't worry. The best thing to do is to try and talk for an hour in a different language. I'm sure that will help. No. So the boat is very special, like you say. The size makes it very, easy to navigate in and around the area. And we've got a few
Exactly.
images here, haven't we, of the background. So these are the types of things you would see. And to explain, the tour is from the 21st to the 30th of June. Let me just pop that up on the bottom as well.
Mm.
And so that's being spent all on the boat as the base. That's correct, isn't it?
Exactly, that's correct. So we going we embark a ship, then we go to wilderness directly and try to explore as much of the amazing Svalbard has to deliver. And just June, I would say, is a perfect period to travel because you still have some some of the ice, and then I mean the pack ice, the frozen sea ice that you see in the picture before.
Mm-hmm.
That picture was actually taken from the crow nest of a ship. And then you can see in this picture we have a lot of pack ice.
Mm,
So I wanted to show that with this picture. So it's a wide angle picture from a Corona. So you see the ship, and also you can also see to the left you also have a quite big glacier iceberg from a glacier as well. So that's not part of the pack ice. The pack ice is flat.
right. Yeah. Okay. And at this time of year, you would find some pack ice in the area.
Yeah, normally we do, but you never know. It's due
Yeah.
to climate change. It's a big difference every year when it comes to ice. Some years they're very dense of ice the whole season, and some
Mm.
years we have very little ice. Um, so it's big difference year to year.
I thought what's really interesting as well, and by the way, everyone who's watching along, thank you for joining us. We're here with Nick and Andy, and we're talking all things to do with Spitsbergen and this tour that we're running in summer 2024. And we're going to talk about some of the landscape, some of the wildlife images in a moment as well. And if you have any questions, if you're watching, any questions at all about either the location, about the tour, about the images we're going to show, about any technical things to do with shooting these types of images or working in these conditions, just put them in the comments. So if you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube, do feel free to hit us with any questions you might have, either for Nicholas, for Andy, or for both. Obviously, I can't help you with anything here, so don't ask me, but I will be happy to point you in the direction of the guys. And I think what I just wanted to say, actually, to both of you is the ship, just from having seen these images and talking to you guys before about this, I think it's important to remember that the ship isn't just the mode of transport, because showing these images, it's an opportunity to shoot from not only outwardly but also to use images that involve the ship to give yourself a sense of place, a sense of scale, etc. as well. So do you find that, Nicholas, that using actually the ship as part of the scene can be quite effective, purely photographically we're talking about?
Yeah, especially in front of glaciers for landscapes photography, it's amazing because it's a extremely beautiful ship. It's built 1959. She she has a culture mark in Sweden because she has so much original. So it's beautiful ship. And one of the benefits with her is that she is very strong in the ice. So that's why we can use her. It's a strong hull. It's an icebreaker hull. So it's even if she's a so small ship, she's um, is capable to go into quite dense pack ice. She is not icebreaker. She not can go into the and just crush the ice, but she can navigate in this dense pack ice areas.
Yeah.
And that's one of the benefits with her. The small size, but still the performance to be up in the Arctic.
And we mentioned shooting images involving the ship. There will be times when you go off the ship with the smaller boats, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But also, I suppose using it as a sense of scale with that ship in front of its background can be really neat as well. So we can see here someone's obviously looking out from a wildlife point of view. So the team there is all geared to helping find photographic opportunities, right?
Yeah, we have two polar guides on board the ships, and then they're doing all we can, night and day to just scouting wildlife, to have a possibility to find good photo opportunities.
Yeah,
Because you never know. It's as you said before, it's a midnight sun, and you never know what's when things happen. It can be the last trip I went on. We had the first night we had like 15 humpback whales, one blue whale, and two fin whales in one feeding area during the night. So therefore, it's very important to scout 24/7.
yeah. Okay, cool. Andy, I just want to bring you in here as well because I know a lot of people will have seen some of your landscape work, but I know you do a fair amount of wildlife shooting as well, don't you? And
I do a fair bit,
increasingly,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, certainly the last sort of 5 or 6 trips I've done to Norway, I've always done whale watching and gone out and photographed the sea eagles and things like that. And I do a fair bit of that here
yeah,
as well with the new cameras with the subject tracking. It's made it all a bit more accessible and increased the hit rate, so it makes it feel a bit more exciting now.
Yeah, and
It's good.
we're gonna get into some of the wildlife shots in the second half of this evening.
Yeah.
We've got some really beautiful wildlife imagery, and we're gonna obviously get Nick's help with some of that and letting you know what you might see. We just kind of want to set the scene a little bit, which is why we're talking about the boat and also we're going to talk about some of the landscape as well, because it is a nice mix of things on this trip. There is a great amount of wildlife from the sounds of it, but also the landscape is very unique. I think, is that fair to say, Nick, in terms of what people will actually see? What would people come across in terms of a landscape view here?
Yeah, I think the big advantage with Svalbard is not, of course, it's dense wildlife, but you also have so much variation in the landscape. It's not all it's not the wildlife is not all about Svalbard. It's also about the landscape. You have like Lofoten in Norway. You have peaky mountains, and you have in the fjords you have big glaciers. 65% of the whole area of Svalbard is covered in ice, so it's a lot of glaciers.
Yeah.
And so in every fjord we visit, we have plenty of uh, glaciers and glaciers calves, and that gives birth to beautiful icebergs as well, as you see here in the picture. And
Yeah.
since they are so old, the glaciers, they can be over around 5 to 10,000 years old ice in those glaciers. That also provide a very special lighting condition in the ice because it's so dense packed, so become very very blue, as you see here in the picture. Especially in backlight, you get this super nice effect with backlighting an iceberg, and it's become even more bluer.
Yeah, and we've got some nice close-up images showing
Yeah.
showing that really in just a
I think
second.
for me as a bird, I must say on the upper left corner you have ivory gull. That's the holy grail on for birders on Svalbard. So it's
So that's
very
up here.
important to notice.
There we go. Okay, good spot. The landscapers would all be trying to clone that out. That's the ignorance, isn't it? Yeah. So just before we get into some of the landscape images, and thanks, there's been a couple of questions. So I'm going to bring those up in just a second. The couple of people who've asked the question. But I just wanted to point out here, you're using the smaller boats, the Zodiacs. So from the main boat, you do use a couple of Zodiacs, don't you, to go out and take people to get a different viewpoint and get a different, way of seeing things. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. We have two zodiacs. They're capable to have actually all in one zodiac, so 12 people in one zodiac. But we're doing two, which means there's plenty of space for everyone, and it's also especially for camera gear as well. So
Yeah.
that's perfect. And we're doing that to get closer to the wildlife or closer to the glaciers and iceberg, or also get the perspective, the great lower angle that we as photographer prefer to have.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. We'll pick up on that in a moment as well. And having been on, I have been on a couple of Zodiacs in New Zealand, and that was great fun. So it's always good fun to be out on the Zodiacs.
Yeah. I
Couple,
often lay down in the zodiacs photographing the whales because the closer down you can get to the water, the better things look, really.
yeah, it's that point of view, isn't it? Like, yeah, yeah. Just can I ask a couple of questions because there's a couple of people who've added those. So let's just Teddy here. Difficult one, Teddy. Probably quite a big question. Has climate change affected the amount of ice in this area? So maybe Nicholas, from your point of view, having travelled there a fair amount, what's the feeling there?
Yeah, oh, yeah, I started traveling to Svalbard 2010. I can see big impact in forms of glaciers. This increase. That's the mainly difference you see. We don't see it so much. We can have warmer summers on Svalbard, warmer water temperature, but otherwise, when it comes to snow and pack ice, it's quite the same, but it's not the same when it comes to glaciers. They have some of them, especially on the west coast, have this increase a lot,
Hmm.
unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you.
Uh,
That's
and also good to know that the archipelago on Svalbard, you have the Gulf Stream coming off on the west coast, and you have colder polar water on the east coast. So it's very two different temperature and climate, the west coast and the east coast of Svalbard.
So can I ask on that point, and before I get to the other question, because Ken, you've asked a question about lens and gear. I'm going to pick that up, Ken, a bit when we get towards the wildlife side of things, because I think that will be useful there. Just in terms of the type of weather conditions people would find in June if they were to book on the tour, what sort of weather conditions might people find on the boat in and around the area at that time of year?
You will find a weather when I have a temperature of around 0 to 5 Celsius in temperature. It's midnight sun. It's midnight sun from April to mid-August, but that doesn't mean that you have a lot of sunny days in Svalbard because they quite often be foggy. And for a photographer point of view, I would say that a foggy condition or actually cloudy condition can be good when it can be otherwise quite strong light. So I prefer actually to have some kind of cloudiness for best type of contrast and also softer light, if you can say so.
Mm.
But that's mainly a good thing with the units that you still have. I said before, you still have hopefully some pack ice in the area, and it's a peak season for wildlife, especially for birds. So it's a really nice period if you want to see a lot of birds and want to see mammals. It's a really good period to travel. If you're going to early in May, you have more ice, you have a more winter landscape, and if you're going maybe in July, August, then you will have no ice at all in the area. It will be a very brownish landscape. And June is often a great mix between everything.
Okay, yeah, nice, good
And
timing then.
obviously nice long shooting days too. So
Yeah,
plenty of time to shoot
plenty of
and
time.
more opportunities to see wildlife as well, I guess.
Mm.
Yeah, and also, and if we find like whales, or if we find polar bears during the night, of course we lower the zodiacs and we see them, and we're doing the best of the opportunity, even if it's during the night.
Mm. So we're showing a few of these what I would call detail shots, or whatever you want to call it, intimate landscape. They're not abstract strictly because we kind of know what they are, but just explain, Nicholas, a little bit the situation here. I presume you're on Zodiacs, you're up fairly close, you're using fairly long lenses to pick out some details. Is that the situation here?
Yes, that's correct. I'm in the zodiac. We're going close to iceberg in backlight again, just to get this great contrast in and also. And it's, as I said, it's a very old ice you see here. It's so dense, so you have pushed away a lot of air bubbles. It's also make it possible to reflect differently, and therefore it will become more bluish. So that's because it have less air bubbles in it. It's extremely dense ice. So when doing shooting photos, when you take a landscape, you often think about wide-angle photos with wide-angle or normal zoom. But I actually prefer in Svalbard to using a shorter telephoto zoom, like 70 to 200 or even 100 to 400, just to get some kind of close-up and also a more distinct or closer wide-angle shot. I think it's very beautiful to frame with a telephoto lens, because it can be distanced, especially to a glacier. You need to have distance to the landscape and to the glacier wall, because of course it can be very dangerous to be very close to a glacier.
Yeah, it's a bit like the cliffs in Dorset, but we won't go into that now. So Ken is asking, because you've touched on it there, I thought I better just bring that up. In terms of full frame terms, what is the longest lens normally used? Now, I know that we have an image here which is very long, it's about 800, we're going to come to later. But in general terms, if someone was coming on the tour, are there things that you would recommend within reason that a normal person would have in their bag, or that you would recommend they would use 90% of the time here?
Yeah, I would say normally when we're talking telephoto lens zooms, I think zooms are the best. You don't need bright lenses with prime lenses on Svalbard normally because you have plenty of light, especially during the summer. So versatile lenses like a zoom lens is preferable to have. They are also more lightweight, and yes, since you use them in zodiacs, you should handheld them as much as possible. So tripod is not an option, I would say.
No.
Monopod maybe, but normally I handheld them in the zodiacs. So 100 to 400. Today's modern cameras, it's a lot of 150 or 200 to 600. I think those will be an amazing lens to have, because to have this little bit extra and go up to 600 could be beneficial for a lot of mammals and birds as well. But for landscapes, yeah, 70 to 200 or 100 to 400 is perfect.
Okay. Andy, I'm going to come to you in a second about what gear you're going to take. I'm just going to quickly answer this from Sandra. Sandra was asking tripod or monopod on the boat. You kind of answered that in terms of your hand holding a lot of the time, and or on the side of the Zodiac can be, I suppose, doable sometimes if you're lying down or whatever it might be. Do you ever find any use for any sort of support such as a monopod, or is it primarily handheld?
Yeah, monopod could be right if you have really heavy camera gear. Of course, it could be good to have. But tripod, the biggest issue with the boat is when it's have a motor on, you have a lot of vibration on the ship. And that's mean that if you have a tripod, you will still have plenty of vibrations. You will have less vibration if you handheld the camera system compared with have it on a tripod on the floor.
Okay. Okay.
And I think it'd be fair to say as well, depending on the camera that you're shooting with. So if you're shooting a mirrorless camera with IBIS as well as image stabilization on the lens, you're going to be, ahead of the curve on, requirements for that as well.
So, Andy, what are you going to take with you, if I can ask, and just so people get a feel for your kit as well? And then, Nicholas, I'm going to
I'm
ask you about
shooting.
yours.
I'm shooting with an R5 at the moment, so I'll be taking that. Whether there's another camera out by then, I don't know. Who knows? Um, I'll be taking my 100 to 500 for sure, and my 24 to 105. I'll have a look. I might take the 800mm. There's an f11 RF 800mm lens that is quite reasonably priced, so I might look at renting one of those. Certainly for long landscapes with bright light, I don't think a fast lens necessarily. I'll sort of do some digging into lens rental prices and have a think. But
Yeah,
I
that's a good.
quite like the look of those 800mm
It's a good point about the
new
rental, isn't
RF
it?
lenses. They look pretty good. We've
Yeah.
actually got a discount code for Light and Land customers with one of the rental companies that we fixed up a while ago.
Okay.
So we can obviously share that with people as well. I need to, if anyone wants it, they need to email and ask us for it because we're not allowed to publish it online. So,
Okay.
but
So
we can certainly share a code with
yeah, and
anybody.
I think rental's really good if you're going on a one-off trip like this. You maybe don't normally think you need to have something that long. Then maybe a short rental is not a bad idea, is it?
Oh, for sure. Certainly for those big fast lenses, if you're going down
Yeah.
that route with wildlife.
And Nicholas, what are you carrying with you then on the boat normally when you go out or on that trip?
Yeah, I'm actually I have a little very lightweight system. I'm using the OM system, so I'm using not full frame, so it's a compare micro four third sensor system,
Hmm.
and that's mean I can carry quite a long focal length in with the camera system without so much weight. So nowadays I'm using for birds and mammals. I'm doing a telephoto lens, which is 300 to 800 with built-in converter. So it's 300 to 1000 millimeters in that lens.
Wow.
So it's amazing lens for a lot of things. And then I'm using for landscapes normally that will be in full frame terms 80 to 300.
Okay.
And the big because my primary work is doing guiding and help other photographers take their photos.
Yeah.
I can't carry uh, two bulky cameras. Therefore, I prefer to have very small camera system. Therefore, and also they are very great when it comes to weather sealing and rough and polite. So that's why I prefer to have that camera system.
Yeah.
Uh,
Because this is quite a long. This you were saying earlier. This is quite a long. This 800. Did you say this was shot at?
yeah, I think this is 800 millimeters. This
Okay.
picture. This is a picture from Bråsvällbren, which is one of the highlights in the eastern part of Svalbard. It's a glacier wall which is approximately 200 kilometers long, just ice wall.
Wow.
Uh, and during the summer when we're melting, because it's a big ice cap, uh, and in the middle of ice cap during the summer, the snow melt on top of it, and it's starting to melt, and it's coming closer to the shore, and we're coming to the glacier wall. It's just have a big waterfall down from the glacier wall, like you see here. It's
Yeah.
very beautiful. This is typical in late June or in July. You will see this amazing sceneries.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we've covered a little bit of the landscape. We just wanted to touch on some of the just briefly here the flora, and you will get your feet on land at some point. Is that fair to say? Is there little bits where you can jump off and jump on?
Yeah, of course.
Great.
Uh, the guides are wearing are equipped with rifles, so we for the bear safety, and we try to doing hikings or landings to see the wildlife, going for a nice hike, or like you see here in the picture, just I would say in the period of June or early July, it's perfect for the Arctic flora. So you see here in the picture, I have a Svalbard puppy, and I'm using it here. I'm often using wide angles, very close up wide angles. I think that's because there's so beautiful landscapes in the background and the sceneries. So it's perfect to just use a normal macro. Instead, I prefer to have this wide angle to
Mm.
get the the nice sceneries behind the puppies here in the picture.
Gives it some context, doesn't it? Puts it in the
Yeah,
place.
and there on the west coast there are plenty of flowers, even in this harsh area, because Svalbard is a harsh area, but you still have beautiful areas with a lot of different species, colorful saxifrage, which is purple, or this poppy, which is a beautiful plant.
Mm. Let's get into a bit of the wildlife because we're going to spend the second part of the chat here talking about some of the wildlife that you'll see, some of the challenges, some of the dangers, I suppose, although obviously those are mitigated on the tour, and some of the technical things as well we need to think about. Before we get into that, a couple of other questions, thank you. And as I've said earlier, if you do have any questions at all, you're watching live, do let us know those. If you're watching this on the catch up and you've got a query about the tour, just email admin@lightandland.co.uk if you have a technical query or a logistical query, and the team will be able to help you in the office. Question here then, just before we get into the wildlife, and maybe if you can both answer this, Andy, I'll throw to you first perhaps. What's the best way to protect cameras from seawater, cold, and condensation? Obviously, other than not dropping them in the water, but is there anything a bit more helpful than that, Andy?
Yeah, and there are quite a lot of camera covers that you can get fairly inexpensively to to sort of put your camera in if it's raining or there's a lot of spray. If it's not windy, they're generally not needed, to be honest. As far as the cold, you shouldn't have any trouble with that side of things these days. And condensation, just pack everything into a bag before you go into the warm, and then let the bag acclimatise gradually. So, if you're eager to process, you need to take your memory card out. Any batteries that need charging up, have those in your pocket, and then just zip the bag up and let it come up to room temperature gradually. And then you shouldn't have any troubles at all.
Spare batteries, I think, is a must on this trip or any shooting from a cold point of view. But Nicholas, any other bits to add just from a protection point of view, or any things you do as part of your ritual?
No, I think Andy had some good things to talk about that, especially with the rain cover that I think the brand called are using a something called lens coat, which is just a
I think that's the same one
raincoat
I have, actually.
over the camera system and the lens. But good thing to if you're a nature photographer and you want to stay out in the wild, please buy a camera which is weather sealed. That's my first primary recommendation.
Yeah, yeah. Good.
Otherwise, Andy's recommendations is very good.
Yeah. If I'm going to throw one tiny little one that should be really obvious, but lens hoods are quite useful to to use. Sometimes it just stops a little bit of the rain getting on if there's a bit of snow around as well. We're used to having filters on the front. Sometimes people don't turn up with lens hoods. If any sort of snow or rain, you're going to get it if you don't have one. So that would be my only thing I'd add in. Martin, just briefly before we get onto the wildlife, would a handheld gimbal be a good thing to bring us? I'm guessing that's more for the video side of things than the photos, but any thoughts, guys, on that?
Yeah, I would say so as well. That for video would be great to have, but I can't really find it with any good reason to have it for still photography.
Yeah, okay. Thank you there, Martin. Right, let's get into some of the wildlife because there's a good number of images here, Nicholas, and maybe obviously the polar bears are so well known and seen, but there's all manner of wildlife that people could see at that time of the year. So maybe could you just outline a little bit of the variety that people might see, and then we can maybe talk about some of these particular images.
Yeah, it's as I said before, it's a really good period to see mammals, mammals and birds. It's peak season for those. Uh, I think the only thing that can be better if you travel further into July and August will be whales because some whale species come to Svalbard a little bit later in the season. But when it comes to land mammals and seals and this marine mammal that you see in the picture, the polar bear, it's not a land mammal, it's a marine mammal. And the perfect period to try to see them. It's especially on their habit, the pack ice. Late in the season, we still have them, but we have them on shore. And for a photographer, of course, it's a highlight to see polar bears on the sea ice. So it's very beautiful, and hopefully, this trip that we have now in late June is a bit 2 days longer than a normal trip we do. Normal PolarQuest trip is 7 nights in June. This one is 9. And with that extra days, we plan to go further north, or maybe have some days extra in the ice, or have extra time to spend in the right area, I would say. And you never know. It's sometimes you have extremely lucky and find the members you want directly, and sometimes it takes a lot of scouting, a lot of time to find this amazing sceneries like this. This is a mother with a yearling, 2 yearlings. I have only seen those small cubs one time before on the ice. It's quite seldom there. Mother polar bears are quite frightened to other bears and also for tourists in general. So it's not so often that we see them so young, so small cubs coming close to the ship.
Mm. It's a great photograph because of obviously because of the subject matter, because it's in the location, but also I would imagine here you're shooting probably a number of images, but then it's picking the right one that tells the story best, isn't it? And so, just from a technical point of view, the front paw which is lifting on the mother, the separation between them. So these are the things that I think make the difference. But if you're shooting a landscape that's not moving, that's a little easier. When you're shooting things that are moving, that's a bit harder, right? So is it a case of keeping your eye actually on what's happening plus an eye in the camera? What's some of the advice really in those situations?
Uh, yeah, I would say, of course, just always look at the framing. Normally, I'm mostly focused on the framing. Should I go closer with the zoom? Should I go back up and see what the perspective and more of a landscape? In this picture, I have zoomed out a little bit, just to have the pack eyes and see because it's telling a story. A
Mm,
close up with just a white background wouldn't tell nothing. But this picture, when you see it in the landscape, then it's telling you something. It's showing the habit of a bear,
mm,
uh, telling it searching for food. You have a reflection from with the water. So as you said, and one eye in the viewfinder, one other eye just for checking other things.
yeah.
That's mainly what. And then of course continue autofocus and just taking a lot of photos as well. Uh,
Yeah, bring some big memory cards, I think is the
uh,
is
Yeah,
the, is the answer
and
there. So
laptops.
yeah. Yeah, I suppose, and Andy, I mean, you've been, like all three of us, we've been very lucky to travel to various parts of the world in our lives and photographically and everything else. This particular trip though, in terms of seeing wildlife, you're going to see things maybe you would never have seen before, you may never see again. But there's a balance, isn't there, between being pinned to the back of the camera, but actually enjoying what is probably quite a unique experience.
Yeah, I think certainly with the whale watching trips I've done in the past and the sea eagle trips I've done in the past, the best advice is to put the camera down and make some memories as well. It's
Mm,
very
yeah,
important to so that you can remember what it was like. You see all people at concerts with their phones in the air, and they don't experience being there because they're so busy. So I think you have to make some memories for sure.
yeah, and I think photographically as well, like you said, Nicholas, maybe uh, a mix of imagery. You talked about coming out a little, setting the scene. There are times though where maybe zooming in a bit closer, getting the character or the texture of the skin, or we're going to see a couple of shots of walruses and bits and bobs in a minute with crazy close up. So I think when you look back at the trip, it'd be nice to have a variety, wouldn't it, of shots from that point of view.
of course, of course. Uh, and also sometimes you maybe have one or two opportunities that gives you those amazing encounters. Therefore, also you don't want to swap lenses. Therefore, I prefer to have a telephoto lens
Mm,
to just have in the same scenery. You have both a possibility to do going close-ups and zoom out to have this landscape photo of mammals as well.
Yeah,
So
Zoom's
that's
definitely the way to go,
one
I think.
recommendation I do have. It's so easy if you have like one prime 600 and one prime 800, you will not change the lens.
yeah.
You will stick to that lens for the whole session.
Yeah, you want the versatility, don't you? Like we're saying.
Yeah,
So who are we looking at here, Nicholas, from a wildlife point of view?
yeah. This is the second largest seal in Svalbard. This is a bearded seal. It's famous for its long whiskers, which looks like a beard.
Yeah.
It's very very unique, very beautiful. And also here look a bit reddish, and
Mm,
that's actually from iron. because some fjords in Svalbard are the the sea sediment is very rich of iron. So when it's digging for food, mussels, fish, crabs, it's digging the head into this sediment, ironish seafloor, and it's become colored of this seafloor. So it's
Yeah.
quite unique. It shouldn't be that. It should be more about the rest of the body, more silver gray. But just in one or two fjords in Svalbard, you will it during the summertime it will become this reddish head.
There you go. That's the kind of
Bit
specialist
rusty.
background information you're going to need and you're going to get. And I mean, this is a great example. So, are you on I presume you're on a Zodiac here or something, Nick, and you're in nice and tight because the detail. I've got this on my big screen behind. Obviously, I'm sharing with everyone here. The detail here is just fantastic. I'm slightly terrified, but it's a great image.
I often say people come to Svalbard to see the bears, but they come back with another uh, favorite mammal, and that's the walrus. It's a
Mm,
true icon of Arctic, and it's for me, it's for photography, it's amazing, and it's amazing mammal in so many aspects. Quite curious, very big, of course. The tusk can be over approximately 1 meters long, weigh 5 kilos. The big males can be very big, weigh approximately 1.5 ton. So because they are, of course, there is a why a polar bear don't approach a walrus.
mm.
Uh,
They can defend
so
themselves.
you should consider that, but of course they are amazing. Often they are curious. They come close to subject or to the ship. Uh, they have after they stop hunting them in the 50s, they have increased a lot of, and there are plenty of walrus in Svalbard right now, and they are amazing mammals. And here I'm shooting from a Zodiac, so I'm actually laying down uh, outside the proton just to come as close to the water level as possible to get this low perspective, the low
Mm,
angle. That's what I prefer to have. Then it's become a little bit more interesting photo, and you also get closer to further away to the background, so you get more blurred out.
mm. Yeah, that's the benefit of getting down low, isn't it? And
Yeah.
there's another of his or her friends there, which we won't, we don't know the whole family, but we won't go into that. So
Yeah.
we wanted to just this is a good example of them in situ, isn't it? So we've talked about the fact that you can get on land. There are obviously safety things to be aware of, and that's why it's really important that you're with a very experienced team who have all the correct procedural things to look after you. But where possible, you do try and get up and as close as safely possible, Nicholas.
Yeah, we do so. Like here, you have a hole out for walruses. I think this pack is around 150 to 200 mammals. Uh, and we land maybe 300 meters away from them with the Zodiacs, and we're starting to hike slowly to come closer to them. And then we stop in a say good good distance for both taking photos and also to have a safe distance for them. Uh, and for us, of course, it's always about safety, but it's also about following the guidelines of IECO, which is the Arctic tourist cruise operator up in Svalbard, because we want to continue doing uh, cruising and expedition trips tomorrow as well, and the upcoming years. So it's not all about uh, pushing the limits all the time. You
Mm.
have to consider also the wildlife itself.
Yeah, so it's respect, isn't it? And then
Yeah,
you will learn more about the place. And I think actually just as we're coming towards the last few minutes here, everyone, thank you very much for staying with us this evening and enjoying the chat. It's I think it's more than just the photography this trip. I don't want to over egg that, but it is. You will learn a great deal about the landscape there, the wildlife there, being on board, living in that situation. And what a way to just dial out of the world and into a different zone for a few days. It's all going to be about seeing and experiencing. And that's so cool. That's such an amazing, to have that for 10 or 11 days is really, really
Yeah, and
exciting.
the great thing with Svalbard is you have no mobile signal at all, so it's a perfect digital detox. I often say. So
Yeah.
you can't if you can't upload your photos from Instagram. You can't check your Facebook. You can't do a normal phone call. You can't do anything in 9 days. You just focus on the wilderness and what you're seeing, and that's really makes a big difference.
Yeah,
Sounds like
that sounds
bliss.
good. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? We just want it for the detox. So just as we come, we've got this, and we've got a few more. We've got some birds as well. We're just going to touch on the last few images. But who's this little character then, Nicholas? Because explain to
Yeah,
us.
this cutie is not bigger than a domestic cat. It's an Arctic fox, and
Mm,
they're quite common to see on Svalbard, especially if we are near a bird cliff. It's a lot of bird cliffs on Svalbard. A lot of nutrients in the water, and the birds breed on the shores and on the cliffs on Svalbard. And of course, since there are no road rats on Svalbard, the main source of food for a fox would be birds. So we often see a den close to a big bird cliff. So
mm,
hopefully,
This
if
is
we go
in the
close
summer
to
coat.
a yeah, this is a summer coat. Yeah, they
mm,
are. You can see actually this. You still have some white fur on the cheeks from the winter. Otherwise, it's during the during the summer, it's become brown, grayish.
mm. Gorgeous. Yeah, that's very, very attractive. And you mentioned about the bird cliffs. I know
Yeah,
there's a lot of those, aren't there? And we've got a couple of images featuring some of the different types of birds. So your background, obviously being a birder, Nicholas, you are the expert here. What are we looking at here?
yeah. In Svalbard, you don't have so many species of birds, but they come in numbers instead.
Mm,
So we have massive bird cliffs. They have this, especially the auk family. Uh, in UK, you have puffins. You have what do you have more? You have black guillemot
Guillemots
as well. Uh,
mm,
and
uh,
razorbill
and
sometimes.
here we have the little auks, which is the smallest one, not bigger than a starling. Uh, and that they are in millions on Svalbard. Then you also have the brunish guillemots. We have plenty of them. We have puffins as well. Yeah, auks family, and then we have kittiwakes. A lot of kittiwakes as well breeding. So yeah, a lot of birds to see, and fulmars of course as well, same as UK. This is the northern fulmar.
mm. That's an
So they,
amazing shot, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, and those often they follow the ship during the expedition. They follow the ship all the time. So often, this photo is taken from the ship. They just follow the waves or following yeah the ship. So it's quite easy to take good photos of fulmars from the ship actually during the
Mm.
trip.
It's never ending. You've just got stuff to
Uh,
shoot everywhere. It's
yeah,
the ship. The ship itself is beautiful off the ship, and then you get out in the boats, you get out on land, etc., etc. So yeah, I mean, I hope tonight we've really given you a kind of taste of a taste of the area, taste of the expertise, which obviously Nicholas and Andy are going to be bringing, and a taste of the reality of some of the equipment things and things to watch out for. These are fantastic images because they take us to somewhere else. They, they show us different parts of the world that are so different to where we live normally, and that are very important. And that there's all sorts of challenges with that as well. And so that could be another thing to think about when you're out there shooting
yeah.
is the usefulness of sharing that.
And obviously, we're all on one boat together, so the chances of missing anything, you're only a few steps away from the edge of a boat, so it shouldn't be minimal opportunities to miss things, really.
So-
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
must also say that those photos that I showed today, they're actually most of them are shot quite recently on a June to July departure that I went
Mm,
on. I think it's maybe more 4 or 5 which are from a previous June departure. So I would say that it's possible to get those shots which shown today, possible to get during one trip in June,
yeah.
July. So it's a lot of not about no tricks, I would say.
Yes, yes, that's it. We wanted to be very transparent that these are images from that time of year. This is the type of landscapes you will generally see, and some of the wildlife. Obviously, it's wildlife and nature, so things can vary. It may be
Yeah,
sunnier, it may be foggier one day, whatever. But it sounds like you'll get a mix of those conditions, and obviously a broad variety of the landscape as well. Now, is that? Oh, there we go. There's a little one up there. Is that another one of
yeah,
our
that's the
treasured?
Ivory Gull, yes.
Okay,
So,
okay.
so it's not about the iceberg here; it's the birds which is important.
Yeah.
The little white one.
Yeah.
It's impressive. This is a glacier in called Negerebren on the east coast of Spitsbergen. It's provides a lot of icebergs and also good areas for ivory gulls as well. So it's a good place to be on the right day.
Cool. Okay. Now, just
Not
before, sorry,
sorry.
go on, Andy. Yeah, yeah, go on.
I was just going to say our exact itinerary is quite fluid, isn't it? Because we'll just follow the weather and the wildlife sightings and be fairly fluid with our
Yeah.
plan.
That's correct, Andy. You should be very open-minded. Often when we're doing, we cannot do any planning until we see the wind chart and the ice conditions in the first day of the trips. Then we can see what's the best route we can do and what's the best possibility for a trip with good mammals encounters, wildlife encounters, and also of course all other things as well. We want to do a good mix in this Svalbard product. We don't only doing focus on walrus or only focus on bears. We will have a great mix of everything normally. That's the perfect trip according to me.
Yeah. So, Nicholas, can you see the query I've just put up? You've kind of answered that because we've explained the itinerary is moderately fluid depending on the conditions at the time, which absolutely makes sense. So, Anne is asking about any specific plans, and I'm asking you, Nick, because I can't pronounce either of those. To hopefully you can see it.
Alkefjell is a beautiful bird cliff in
Yeah,
Hidloopen Strait. Often, yes, doing a trip with 9 days and the ice conditions is normal, we hope to doing a trip to Hidloopen area.
yeah.
So
Okay.
I think that's mainly what the plan is. This year, actually, it was not possible to do that in late June. For most of the ship, they were stranded in the north west corner because of a block of ice. Me and my guide team set, we went the opposite way and did the uh, going south instead and uphill open from the south, and we managed to go Alkefjellet. I think we was one of the first ships for the season, and that was late June.
Okay.
But if it's a normal ice year, I would say late June. It's possible to go to Alkefjellet
Yeah.
in Hinlopen area, and it's a strait between the big main islands on Svalbard, the Spitsbergen, the main island, and the east islands, Nordaustlandet.
Okay. Well, thanks for
It's a
picking
lot
up
of
the.
Norwegian words.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. Even with a cold, you're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah.
So, Anne, I think the takeaway from that, and for everyone, if anyone can get you there, these guys are going to get you there if it's safe and viable to do so. So that they are the experts, and they're going to look after you. Teddy, how many hours of daylight in June?
It's midnight sun, so it's just circling above us all the time.
Yeah, so full,
So
full.
we will have a first. It will touch the horizon again. I think it's 18th of August on Svalbard.
Okay, so no lack of light, let's say.
No.
Cool.
Lots of nighttime shooting.
Yes, you won't know if it's night or morning. No, you will. Good. Okay. Well, listen, guys, it's been really, really great to talk to you both about this. Andy, any other bits just before we leave? I know obviously you're very excited to get out. As we said at the beginning, you've been to Norway a lot of times, but obviously you're very excited to get to this particular trip.
Yeah, I think Arctic landscapes are certainly got a charm of their own. So I'm very excited to get back and seeing big mammals and these sort of landscapes that are getting less wintry, I guess, as well. So it's nice to see them while they're still.
Yeah.
Who knows? Future generations might not so much. So it's good to go and witness, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Well, listen, Nicholas, thank you very much because A, you've done this on the back of a nasty cold. B, you've done it in a different language. C, you've picked up some names of things that aren't even your language. And D, if I started in letters, I think I did, you've shared with us a load of great images and given us a really good taste. So thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. And I wish I could come with you. If you are out there watching and you would like to join Nicholas and Andy and a small group on the trip here for 11 days overall, you can find out more about that on the Light and Land website. To reiterate, sorry, 9 days, 21st to the 30th of June 2024. There are spaces available as we speak, so do jump on that. It is a big trip, and we absolutely understand you might have some queries about logistics, about anything. So we know that you may need some extra things answered. We've tried to do that tonight, but if you have any other questions, do email the office, admin@lightandland.co.uk, and they can fill you in on any of the technicalities, logistics you have any queries about. So do get in touch. There's always someone, a person you can talk to who will give you the info or find the info out and share the right info with you. Teddy says, thank you very much for a very informative live stream. Thank you for watching, Teddy. I would just take the last couple of moments to promote what we've got next. Bit of a change in gear. Sorry, everyone. But, you know, I've got to do my things. The next live stream, we're back onto a Tuesday. So it's this coming Tuesday. This was a special Monday where we could get Nicholas and Andy together. But we're going to be talking to Ed Rumble and Tom Sullum about their photography, about some trips they're doing coming up soon, including one to the Dolomites. But we're going to be talking about colour photography, black and white photography. So it's really an introduction to Ed and to Tom, and to get a bit more about their story and how they came to be Light and Land leaders, and about some of their workshops as well. So join me on Tuesday, the normal time, Tuesday, 8 p.m. here on YouTube or Facebook. You can catch up with myself and the gang. But for now, I'm just going to say thank you to everyone that's watched. Thank you to Phil. And as I say, thank you to Nicholas and to Andy. And we will see you all again very soon. But from us, good night and cheerio for now.
Thanks,
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thanks, Anne. Thanks, Nick. Bye. Thank you.